Good morning, students. Let us start the class with Brahmananda. Hope you might be very busy with your preparation for half-yearly examination, and we have completed our course for half-yearly examination. Now, this is the first revision class I am going to discuss before you, and we are going to discuss about the first lesson. We have already studied the lesson. Still, just to recapitulate the points, main points, I am going to discuss before you with the following points. Visit of the writer to the restaurant. You saw the writer visited the restaurant. The restaurant was very crowded, and he saw some of the chairs and tables had been pushed into a corner, and he chose the corner table to sit there peacefully, wait for his lunch, and skim through the newspaper. While skimming through the newspaper, he noticed a very young girl looking at him with a sad expression in her large and curious eyes. And the writer definitely surprised to see the girl looking at him constantly. So the girl, before going out of the restaurant, the girl inquired from the cashier about the writer, whether the writer was an Indian, and the writer was surprised to see such strange activities of the girl. And again, before leaving the restaurant, the girl looked at the writer once more and left the restaurant. So, such strange activities of the girl made the writer astonished and curious to know about the girl. So, before leaving the restaurant, the writer also inquired about the girl from the waiter, and the writer came to know that the girl came to the restaurant only on Saturdays, and so the writer got another important information from the waiter that perhaps the girl might be poverty stricken. So this helped the writer to know more about the girl and meet the girl again in the restaurant. So he waited for the next Saturday. When the next Saturday came, the writer went to the same restaurant on lunchtime and found the girl sitting at the same table as before and taking her lunch. With the intention to meet the girl and know about her and the reason why she was looking repeatedly at the writer and why she inquired from the cashier about the writer, and to satisfy, to know the answer of so many questions, the writer went to the girl and took the chair just opposite of the girl. And after a short remark, the writer was able to start a conversation with the girl. So, after conversation, the writer felt that the girl was interested to take the writer to her home, but she could not express before the writer. The writer felt it, and with talking to the girl, the writer proceeded towards her home. And the writer went to the girl's house, and the girl opened the door with a thin latch key out of her pocket, and she asked the writer to enter into or come into her home, and they went to the kitchen. In the kitchen, an old woman was preparing cakes, and the girl, Maggie, introduced the writer with her mother. She was her mother. She was preparing cakes to sell them that evening in the market. The writer held out his hand for a handshake, but the old woman, Mrs. Betty, the mother of Maggie, was unwilling to make a handshake with the writer as she was preparing cakes and her hands were covered with flour. So this is the first part that we discussed in short, and let us discuss the questions, important questions from the first part. What did the writer experience in the restaurant? The writer went to the restaurant on lunch time. It was fully crowded and people were busy with eating and drinking, and he saw some of the chairs and tables had been pushed into a corner. He chose the corner table to skim through the newspaper, wait for his lunch and spend his time there. So let us see the second question. How did the writer start a conversation with the girl? You know, the writer got the information from the waiter that the girl visited the restaurant only on Saturday, so he waited for the next Saturday, and when next Saturday came, the writer went to the restaurant on lunch time, and he saw the girl taking her lunch at the same table as before, and the writer went up to the girl, took the chair opposite of the girl, and after a short remark or brief remark, he was able to start a conversation with the girl. Third question that we got from the first part of the lesson: why was Mrs. Betty unwilling to make a handshake with the writer? Mrs. Betty was preparing cakes to sell them in the market as it was Saturday. So she was unwilling to make a handshake with the writer because her hands were covered with flour. Why was Saturday night a time of festivity in the poor neighborhood? In the poor neighborhood, most of the people are worker class and they got their payment on Saturday. So out of their weekly earning, they were able to spend a little amount of their weekly earning in the market. So that's why the night, Saturday night, most of the people went to the market to buy different things from the market. So Saturday night is just like a time of festivity in the poor neighborhood. So this is all about the first part. So in the second part, we studied in the lesson. Mrs. Betty asked questions about India and the Punjab. So after meeting with Mrs. Betty, the mother of Maggie, Mrs. Betty was curious to know about India and the Punjab where her son was working as a soldier. She expressed before the writer that her son Frankie was working as a soldier in the Punjab. So she asked the writer what kind of country is India, and what kind of place was the Punjab. So the writer told that India is a beautiful country and the Punjab is a fine place healthy place to live in. She asked Maggie to show the ring which her brother sent her. While drinking tea in Maggie's house, Mrs. Betty showed a photograph of her son Frankie, which was very neatly kept inside an envelope. Thereafter, Mrs. Betty asked Maggie to show the ring that her brother sent her from India. Maggie brought the ring and showed it to the writer Mr. Gupta and asked Mr. Gupta whether he could see the past and future of a person through the ring. The writer could not know what he would do at that moment, so he felt that the ring was an ordinary one. But while the son of Mrs. Betty, Frankie, had sent the ring, and with the ring he had written a letter. In the letter, Frankie had expressed that if you concentrate on a distant person and gaze into the ring, you will be able to see him, what he is doing there. Means Mrs. Betty and Maggie strongly believed that they could see the past and future of a person through the ring, as it was written by their son Frankie. So when they could not get any letter from him for a long period of time, they tried several times to see the activities of Frankie through the ring, but they failed to see anything through the ring. So they believed that an Indian can see the past and future of a person through the ring, as it was sent from India. And they believed that Indians love the truth, and they are honest, they are holy persons, so they could see the past and future of a person through the ring. So Mrs. Maggie requested the writer, Mr. Gupta, to see the activities of Frankie, but the writer felt that it was an ordinary thing, and it was quite impossible on the part of a person to see the past and future of a person through the ring. But at that moment he didn't want to break the heart of the mother and the daughter, means Mrs. Betty and Maggie. So he didn't want to break their dream. So let us discuss a question from the second part. What are the beliefs of Mrs. Betty and Maggie about the ring? While living in India, Frankie had sent a ring to Miss Maggie, and with a letter he expressed about the ring that if you concentrate on a distant person and gaze into the ring, you will be able to see him, what he is doing there. And they heartily believed that they could see the past and future of Frankie through the ring. So they tried several times. When they neither got any letter nor any news about Frankie. Let us come to the third part. In the third part we study visit of the writer after several months. After several months the writer visited Maggie and Mrs. Betty, and at that moment Mrs. Betty was in a critical condition. She was seriously ill, only aggravated by her anxiety for Frankie. Thinking about Frankie, she was completely ill, and she was bedridden. So the writer could not decide what he would do at that moment, so he was in a fix. And at that moment, Maggie requested the writer to tell a lie looking at the crystal that Frankie was alive and well in India, because Maggie believed that if the writer would speak that Frankie was alive and well in India, she believed that her mother would recover and her mother would get well. So she heartily requested the writer to tell a lie, and she told the writer that it would not be a lie at all. And the writer thought over the request of Maggie, and he thought that he was not a very virtuous man, so he decided to tell a lie before the ailing mother, Mrs. Betty. So with the ring, he approached the bedside of Mrs. Betty and looking at the crystal, he said that Mrs. Betty, your son is alive and well in India. And before leaving London, the writer wished to say goodbye to Maggie and Mrs. Betty. So he desired to go to Maggie and Mrs. Betty to bid them goodbye, but he came to know that the family was completely in mourning and they were observing mourning at the death of Frankie. So he could not have the courage to go and face Mrs. Betty again, as he expressed the lie and as he told the lie to save the life of Mrs. Betty, that her son was alive and well in India. So the writer wrote a letter expressing his departure from London, and in the next day Maggie had come to bid goodbye to the writer, and the writer expressed that he would visit the grave of her brother and write to her. So the heart of Maggie filled with gratitude when she got the assurance of the writer to visit her brother's grave and write to her. Her eyes filled with tears, and she took a shilling out of her pocket and offered the writer to buy flowers and put them on the grave of her brother on behalf of her. And you know, the fourth paragraph, fourth part is very important, as it is described about the offer of Maggie, the gift offered by Maggie to the writer. And Maggie offered the shilling to the writer, and here the writer thought to return the shilling to Maggie, expressing that in India flowers grow in plenty. So there is no need to take the shillings from Maggie and buy flowers and offer them on the grave of her brother. So flowers in India grow in profusion. So there is no need to take a shilling from Maggie and buy flowers and offer them. So the writer promised to offer flowers, but he thought to return the shilling. But in the next moment, he thought not to deprive Maggie of her joy that she would get offering the shilling. So the writer accepted the shilling from Maggie and promised to buy flowers and offer them on the grave of her brother. And it was the priceless gift. That was the gift of a sister towards her brother. So let us see the last question. What was the gift of Maggie? Why was it called a priceless gift? When the writer assured Maggie to visit her brother's grave and write to her, she took a shilling out of her pocket and offered the writer and asked him to buy flowers with the shilling and offer them on the grave of her brother. It was a priceless gift because Maggie had earned the shilling with so much hard labor. Still, she offered the shilling to buy flowers to be given on the grave of her brother. It proves her love, her sacrifice, her devotion, her emotion towards her brother, deceased brother, which was beyond all price. So it was called priceless gift. This is all about the first lesson and the long questions of the first lesson. We will meet again in the next class to discuss about the second lesson and second important questions of the second lesson. Thank you very much.